Hello, so welcome to another video by Mix, and in this video just going to be talking a little bit about a very interesting subject, which is finances and taxation, because everybody in society pays tax in one way or another, and I will talk about the various forms of taxes, what they do for society, and how we have to account for them as individuals and also as organisations. So the first tax that essentially everybody will pay, even young children, is VAT, which is value added tax, and that's essentially a sales tax on essentially every product that you can buy in a store or online. There are some exemptions, and these are for various purposes, that where goods, for example, baby clothes, and these will be listed here, so the exemptions will be listed. But also, there's a possibility of having different levels. So, for example, your gas bill will have 5% VAT as opposed to the full rate, which is 20%. So that means that any product you want to sell for retail purposes, 20% will be added to the cost or the price, and you as a consumer pay this. Now, there is some debate about VAT, about how fair it is upon particularly the poor people in society, because they inevitably pay a large percentage of their income in VAT than, say, a rich person would, but 20% is the current rate. That tends to be pretty standard around the world, and it's an important tax for the Treasury, which is where all of the tax gets collected by government and it then gets distributed around to different government departments, for example, health, policing, education, the environment, etc. So VAT contributes around about this figure here. I can't remember exactly, so it's this figure here on the screen. It contributes according to the government. The next tax I want to talk about is income tax. Now, income tax is a particularly interesting tax in that it is very much not the same for everybody. So you pay a proportion of your income in income tax above a threshold. So let's say you earn £20,000 in a year. Now, the current allowance, which is the amount you can earn before you pay any tax whatsoever, is around about 12,500. So you are liable for tax on the 7,500 which is left. How that's calculated is at different rates. So above the first £12,500 you earn is free of any tax. It's the personal tax allowance. 12,500 up to £45,000 or thereabouts is known as the basic rate. £45,000 up to £150,000 is known as the higher rate. Anything above £150,000 you pay 45% on, and that's regardless of how much. You could earn £10 million in a year, you could earn £100 million in a year, you pay 45% on anything above £150,000. So these are the three income tax bands: the basic, the higher, and the additional. And these form the core of what people will pay in tax directly to the government. And that gives you an estimation of what people are paying at different levels of income. And so the more you earn, the more you'll pay as an absolute sum, because clearly someone who's earning more will pay more tax anyway than someone who's earning less. But also the more you earn, the more percentage you'll pay as well, up to a maximum of 45%. So that is the income tax, and again, it contributes this figure to the Treasury. It's quite extensive. It's certainly one of the, might even be the top tax that people across the government of the country pay. Now, most people will pay this through what's known as PAYE, which is pay as you earn. Now, that's an automated way of paying tax through your monthly or fortnightly payroll. Most people it's monthly, so you'll pay PAYE, and that'll be automatically deducted from your salary each month, according to the rate in which you pay it. So if you're employed, you'll tend to do PAYE, whereas if you're self-employed, then you have to do the tax directly. Normally, you can consult an accountant. There's lots of software out there which enables you to take account of your earnings and outgoings, and that can also make sure you pay the correct amount of tax. Because if you don't pay the tax, then that is a criminal offence, and it can also carry over jail time. So it's a very serious matter, and it's something which everybody has to do in society at different levels of their income accordingly. Other forms of tax that the government collect for what's known as revenue are, for instance, the stamp duty, which is a tax you pay when you move house, depending on the value of the property you're moving into. You also pay a tax for having a car, road tax, that takes into account your responsibilities as a car owner to pay that. Most money from the government collects just goes into one big giant pot, and it then just gets spread out between different departments for different reasons. Another form of taxation is council tax, and that's a tax you'll pay living in a residence. You'll pay that directly to the council. The kind of property you live in will determine the amount you pay. So if you live in a particularly large property, you'll pay more. You live in a smaller property, you'll pay less. It's normally done according to the value of the property you live in through various council tax bands, and that also helps pay for all the council services. Not all of the council services, but certainly some of them. Also, it contributes towards police and fire as well. Now, I just wanted also to cover quickly the idea of borrowing money. Because borrowing money in and of itself doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. It can actually be very useful if you're investing for a solid reason. So when it comes to borrowing money, think about what is the reason you're doing this. Are you doing this to perhaps pay off some existing debts? Are you doing this because you want to get the latest gadget? These sort of things often actually end up being can quickly spiral out of control and cause issues. So I would think very carefully about what you're borrowing for. So, for instance, a sensible thing to borrow money for would be, for instance, if you're buying a house, like having a mortgage is a form of a loan. You pay that off over about 25, 30 years. And that's a good thing because by the end of the time you pay off the mortgage, you'll actually own the house outright and it'll be completely yours. And if you were to sell the house, that money would be completely yours to do as you wish. So because you paid off the loan. Also borrow money perhaps to go to university. Although there is some debate around the exact details of that, it's still a sensible course, generally speaking, to be able to get yourself the qualifications, to be able to earn more money in the future. So loans that have an investment purpose and that for that reason to help improve your life in some long-lasting, semi-permanent fashion is often a decent thing to do as long as it's reasonably well managed. But if you're looking to borrow money to go gambling, that's not particularly sensible, because how can you guarantee you're going to be able to pay off the debt? And these things also can affect your credit rating. Credit rating is very important when it comes to wanting to have a mortgage or get a loan for a car, for instance. So borrow money, as long as you can manage the repayments, and also the purpose of having that lump sum given to you, as long as you can put it to some purpose, often is a very good thing to do. It's just about being sensible and being realistic about what you can pay back and what the upside will be for you in terms of any extra earnings, or what it will do in terms of how it will enhance your life. Will you be able to manage the debt? So debt in itself doesn't necessarily have to be bad. And actually, debt is useful for the overall economy because it means that people can borrow, and that's good for the economy in terms of having more productivity, having money which otherwise would sit idle, doing nothing, being put to a good use, helping to start a business, or upgrade a house. These things that tend to employ people. They tend to get things moving, things being bought, purchased. That's all generally good stuff. But personal debt is something which you have to be very mindful of and be conscious of what's the use of this.
I hope you found this video useful. For further information, please see the links on the website. Thank you very much, and see you again soon.